All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We've got Carolina Hurricanes and ACC reporter for Fox Sports South, Abby Labar. Abby, has everything going for you?
Hi, good. How are you? Thankful. I know we were just talking. Thankful that everyone's getting vaccinated and we can get fans back in the building.
Yeah.
So things are going well.
So for the entire season, have you guys been letting people in?
So we started about March, the beginning of March. So really just this month, we've had fans. I think we just had like our 7th or 8th game with fans in the building. So we have about 3,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it does when you go from having absolutely nobody to people in the building. So it's been really nice.
So do they have to wear a mask? Are they tested or just how was it working?
No, so no testing. So everything's like pretty, like anybody, they open it up to season ticket holders. So, really anybody who wants to buy tickets can come if they feel comfortable. And
Cool.
everyone has to wear masks and they have to spread everybody out like a certain distance. So to kind of keep everything safe. But they have like the concourse is split up into like one way and another way. So like you can only walk this way on the right side and you can only walk this way on the left side just to make sure nobody's like running into each other. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do.
And then are you traveling to road games? You guys just doing home games?
Just home. Yeah. So it's crazy. Like we'll get a sorry, I have videos playing in the background. We will have a home game and like we'll have the fans. And then like yesterday we had a road game and we go back in the building and it's like so quiet compared to like when we normally have fans in there. So it's definitely interesting, but it's been fun.
All right, so for people like myself who've not watched much hockey this year, a lot of stuff going on, especially you got March Madness, basketball, football, baseball's coming back. All right, what should non-hockey fans know about what's happening in hockey so far this year?
All right, well, so for starters, if you really want to go what's happening, like, very basics, the divisions and the conferences were totally switched up this year, which has kind of provided something very exciting. And they did this because hockey has Canadian teams. Well, there's issues with the borders, just like you guys are seeing with the Toronto Raptors having to play in Tampa, right? Yeah. So they basically said, in order to be able to do this and to help with travel, we have to split up our divisions this year based off of location. So there is a only Canadian division this year, which I know Canadian hockey fans love. Actually, a lot of hockey fans are pretty excited for this because a lot of people wondered before, like, why aren't just the Canadian teams in a division? So yeah, so it's called the North Vision. What's more fitting, like we the North. Yeah, the North Division. So that is all the Canadian teams. And then you have the West Division, which is most of the teams out on the West Coast. And then you have the East Division, which is essentially most of the teams on the East Coast. But we fell into like that weird area where they weren't really sure, like, okay, do we keep, because they had too many teams in the East. So they pulled us and even Nashville, even though I know Nashville's technically always been like the Central Division. They're still kind of from a like regional standpoint, like when you look at it, sometimes you want to push them over, and the Florida teams were kind of controversial too. So in order to kind of work it out so that teams weren't having to travel far, they put us, the two Florida teams, into the Central Division, and they pulled Dallas, who technically is normally West, into the Central Division as well. So the Canes are a part of the Central Division, which is like an ensemble of like these teams that have never really been in a division for a long time together. And so it's been fun, like at least for us, I can't speak for hockey fans in some of the other divisions who are stuck playing their same teams, but I can imagine it's fun for the Canadian division. I can imagine, it's been fun for us in the Central Division. I don't know the East and West because those are kind of the same teams that have always really played each other. But there's been a lot of excitement about facing new teams that you don't often get to see as much. Like Dallas, we only normally see twice in a season, and we're facing them 8 times this season. So that's the other kicker with this hockey season. You can only play inside your division. That's why they did it. So we don't see any other teams outside of the Central Division. We are playing every single team inside the Central 8 times. So it's like totally feels like playoff hockey as we've started to kind of get past the halfway mark, because we're playing these teams like 5-6 more times. And it's insane. So it's been really fun. It's been very different, but it's been really cool.
So no wonder Tom Wilson got so pissed off at that one guy.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the only thing I've heard about hockey this year is Tom Wilson clocked a guy and he's in trouble.
If there is not a headline that Tom Wilson has clocked a guy, then there's something wrong with this hockey season. So at least that makes us feel a little bit normal because Tom Wilson is still Tom Wilson.
Yeah. Has there been a lot of COVID issues amongst the players, or the guys been responsible?
Yeah, so we went through a wave. It's pretty much kind of what we saw during football season, right? Like each team goes through their wave, and then they kind of like lock in, and a couple of the guys already had it, and so knock on wood, we've been okay since our first like wave that we had. We had a little bit of a stumble in the beginning of January where we had like 5 guys out. But since then we've been rocking and rolling, which has been great. So you try to argue, and this is the same in every league with every sport. Like if you're gonna have it, you rather get the team have it over with at the beginning of the season. Do they hit in the middle? And you don't want to have it at all. But we're lucky we kind of did get to sweep it under the rug, and hopefully we continue to trend upwards.
So Dallas is in the Central Division for hockey, and they're in the NFC East for football. Because that makes sense. Like, that makes sense for both, right?
How does that even work? I know.
I've always wondered. I've always want to ask. Because I've talked to a bunch of former Cowboys players, and I always want to be like, "Hey, you guys know you're in the wrong division, right?"
Yeah.
But I'm not going to ask. Not going to ask them that.
Who makes these things?
No, it's unbelievable. Any guys this year? Trying to think. Are there any guys this year that are kind of having like a breakout season? Maybe names we haven't heard before, or guys that maybe coming out maybe a late career surge?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going Hurricanes, like, hey, if you're talking just guys in general in the league, the Hurricanes are going to come up because they have been playing so well, and there are some names that have really emerged. The one in particular, and it's funny, a friend of mine who writes for The Athletic, she joked about this the other day, like, this is the guy that the Canadian teams finally realize he's a player in the league, at the end, because they are always in there. The Canadian teams are always so obsessed with the Connor McDavids of the world. They forget that the little guys exist. So Marty Necas, he's a player for the Hurricanes he's 22 years old. He's in his second season with the NHL team, but he was drafted in 2017. So he played at the AHL level for a year. And we were talking to him the other day, and he was like, he literally said these words: "I was pissed off that I had to play at the minor league level, at the AHL level for a year, but that gave him the motivation and confidence to be able to play once he got moved up to the NHL club." So he's just been on fire. He's capturing and turning heads of a lot of people in this league. And the Hurricanes in general have had a younger team, but it's a younger team that now has 2 seasons of playoff experience under their belts. So, if the Hurricanes make a run and make it to the Cup final, it should be no surprise for anybody. So I'm trying to think of like other teams of some young players that have really emerged. It's so hard because we're like so engulfed in just the Central Division. It's like, what else is happening outside? I think the Florida Panthers are like the team that just kind of came out of nowhere. For the last few years, they've struggled. They went through a coaching change, and they have some extremely strong talent on that team that is really just emerging this season. And I think it just kind of came out of left field. Their head coach is Joe Quenneville, who has a great reputation as a head coach in the National Hockey League. And so I think people knew when he took over that they would be in good hands, but we didn't expect to see them at the top of the league right now. The Canes are, but I mean, it's been a different season, an unexpected season, but it's been fun.
Do you think because they have all the different divisions just geographically, once playoffs come, like you're just going to be like, okay, so this team's maybe a lower seeded team that maybe was in a tougher division is just going to smoke somebody that had it easy? Yeah,
that's what's going to be really interesting, right? Because like when we were in, normal life, our central or our metro division, our original division, was always one of the more competitive divisions, but you got thrown into playing, other teams, and you got your experience against the Boston Bruins, who we ended up losing to, twice in the playoffs. And so I think it's a really great point that you bring up, because you're not even getting a taste of what the other divisions have to offer. Like and not to mention you haven't played some of those teams in over a year, almost even, a year and a half for some of the teams that you saw early last season. So I think that's going to be a really interesting topic and storyline come the conference finals, and which I don't even think they're technically called the conference finals because we don't have conferences. But come the 2 finals games, the last 2 rounds, when you are playing these teams outside of your division. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
So the guys are all in their home cities and they're just traveling in between 3 other cities besides their okay.
Yeah, so there's how many teams are in each division?
There's an odd number of teams in hockey, right? I always thought that was bizarre.
6. What's that?
There's an odd number of teams in hockey, right?
There's 31 now. There used to be 30 because they just added Seattle, but Seattle's not technically playing.
Okay.
Or wait, maybe yeah, that's right, 31.
The Krakens, I know that.
The Seattle Kraken. Yeah.
I don't know how you have odd numbers. That's wild to me, but yeah.
Yeah, so technically right now we're even because
okay.
Since we have 30, the Kraken haven't technically started playing yet. I think that's right. Now I'm second guessing myself. No, that's definitely right. Seattle Kraken.
I think you're right. Yeah.
They start this next season because we have the expansion draft coming.
Oh, cool.
Somewhere.
And then so with the Caps, since I'm here in DC, is this? I feel like every season, like they're a little bit down. Then they're like one of the best teams in hockey, and then aside from a couple of years ago, they just kind of fall off in the playoffs. Is that going to happen again?
I hope so because we don't like playing the Capitals. No, the Capitals. It's so fun because the last couple of years we've kind of like, that goes back to like how they realign the divisions this year.
Yeah.
There's good and bad. The good is we get to see some different teams. The also good is I guess we don't have to deal with, teams like the Bruins and the Capitals that we've mounted these postseason rivalry with. But then the bad is you don't get to see the Bruins and the those rivalries are fun, right? Especially when they start to marinate over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that we don't have to see them again. But at the same time, we have had our success against the Capitals recently. So I could go either way.
And I know Tampa Bay won it last year. Did they look like they're going to repeat?
They are in our division. And so that's what's, they're the team that we're struggling against right now. The Hurricanes have 7 losses. 3 of those are from Tampa Bay. So that's the team that we need to remind ourselves, like we're going to have to beat them in the regular season to be able to make the run that we need to in the postseason against them because they're no joke. I mean, they're doing exactly what the same guys from last season. It's, the guys that won the cup, they know how to do it. And especially in this COVID world, I think that's the big thing that a lot of people forget. Like, and I remember like Rod Brindamore was always saying that when the teams were in the bubble for the playoffs, it was more of a mental game versus a physical game. And the teams that kind of made it towards the end were the ones that mentally were still checked in. Like it's so easily to mentally check out when you're in a bubble environment like that. Hopefully, and I don't think this is the case. There's still, the details still have to come out. I don't think they would do a bubble again this year. But it's still a season that's mentally taxing on you because of the amount of games and, the protocols and not seeing family. And so it's going to be another one of those seasons where you have to be a mentally tough team to be able to make it and eventually win the cup. And so, obviously Tampa has been through that and they have that experience. So, they can take that and use that as an advantage.
Well, also Florida's in 2025 and their pandemic's over, so they're pretty much good on that.
Right? I know. Yeah, that's true. I guess their protocols are a little different down there.
There's some, once you get there, you're automatically 5 years ahead.
Yeah.
And then you brought up about the Canadian teams as kind of like the border issue. What are they going to do for the playoffs, assuming there's going to be Canadian teams playing American teams?
I think that's why there still hasn't been anything official that's really come out as far as what the playoffs look like, because I think that's something that they're still working out. A part of me wonders if there's a scenario where they all have to come down to the States and basically quarantine before the playoffs, and then they'll kind of bubble themselves or, whatever until they can play the other teams. That's going to be something that's really interesting, and we'll all be on the lookout to watch. Because it doesn't seem like Canada's really eased a ton of restrictions. And I know the border situation is still pretty much the same. So that's been the tough part too, with like trades and, the trade deadline's coming up. So like, that's been a big thing with the trade deadline. Like teams are probably going to start making moves sooner than later because guys have to quarantine once they get to the team. If they had to travel like via airplane and stuff. And so you don't want to acquire a guy to make a playoff run and then he have to sit out for 2 weeks. Like, what's the point in that, So, everything has like a strategy behind it this season, which is, really interesting.
I have a question. If I handed you a blank map of Canada, could you point out each city that is a Canadian NHL team?
I think I can now. Yeah. So like
Yeah.
we can like pretend like this is a
Yeah.
map.
Yeah.
So you have like Toronto, I know is like obviously straight
Yeah.
up from New
Yeah.
York. You can get there. And then it goes Montreal is like the next closest to Toronto, I think. It goes Toronto, Montreal, and then Edmonton, Winnipeg, and
You could offer
Vancouver are
me
like all over here.
you could offer me $500,000 to find Edmonton on the map, and you'd keep your
But
money.
in my defense, I haven't traveled yet with the team. It's my first season doing this, and we're all at home. So at least I haven't like been there and had to like figure out where they were. So
no, because I know somebody posted a couple weeks ago on Twitter. They were like, "Hey, if I handed you a blank map of the United States and I gave you $1 million for every state you could correctly identify, but if you, but you got to finish. So if you can get one for everyone you can get, but if you get one wrong, you get no money. How many could you get?" And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Nobody knows. I could probably do 20. I could get the coasts. I could get the coast.
Right.
Canada, no chance.
No shot.
No, when you said Montreal is next to I thought Montreal. I'm thinking I get them in Vancouver. Them in Vancouver always mixed up.
I might be wrong, but Vancouver is really far west, so I think Montreal is more east than.
Okay, I think because Vancouver's sort of near Seattle. I have no idea. Canada's like a different world to me.
I know.
And then so I want to ask your so you cover ACC for Fox Sports Math. You covered a lot of games this year. I think I saw you did a bunch of Boston College games this year. We're getting close to the NFL draft. Are there any guys you've seen some film this year you've watched you think you're going to be that are going to excel at the next level?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot because football was so long ago, right? I'm like so engulfed in hockey. I have to compartmentalize my season sometimes until there's like a little bit of a overlap. I'm trying to think Boston College. Who did they have this season? They always have good running back. Did David Bailey, he ended up transferring, didn't he?
I have no idea. I've never heard him. Maybe. Possibly. Yeah, I've never. The only running, I think they're running back a couple of years ago. Who was like a Heisman candidate.
AJ Dillon was their big guy.
He went to the Packers last year. Yeah.
Their quarterback, Phil Jerkovic.
I think I've heard that name.
Yeah, so he was really good. I'm trying to think of he's only a sophomore though, so he wouldn't
he's not going to draft.
Going to the draft. No, Jeff Hafley did a great job with that Boston College program. I'm trying to think of like what other. So who else did I covered Syracuse. Syracuse had some quarterback issues. Okay. So none of their because they had the quarterback who was a senior, Tommy DeVito, that had been there for a while, and he went down with an injury because he was like the talk of the town until he got an injury. So I don't know what his status would be.
Did you cover Virginia? Did you cover Virginia Tech or Clemson at all?
Virginia Tech, yep. I didn't cover Clemson. We did a Virginia Tech. Actually, no, maybe I'm thinking of 2019. God, I'm getting my years mixed up. So I did I did a couple Syracuse games.
Okay.
I did Boston College. I did Wake Forest.
They have a lot of guys that are going to be the draft.
Yeah, so Wake Forest is always good because Dave Clawson does a great job at developing those guys. So Suleiman, I can never say his last name. Suleiman Kamara.
Surratt?
Yeah.
I'm thinking
he is a big. Okay. He's a big.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's got a cool story where he kind of, he got there out of high school. I don't think he was a starter initially. His high school story is pretty interesting. Like he really just started playing because his brothers played, and he came from a different country, or his parents came from a different country. He's got this really cool story, but he's one of those guys that Dave Clawson has developed that's worked his way up and will end up in the draft. They've got the other guy.
I know they have Basham.
Boogie Basham.
Yeah.
Yeah, Boogie Basham is the other guy. So Suleiman and Boogie Basham are the two ends for them that are just.
I know they have a good receiver, and then I know they had a quarterback who transferred to Georgia. I really like.
Yeah,
Newman.
So they had Jamie Newman transferred to Georgia, which I don't know what.
I don't think he played. But I want Washington to take him.
He opted out.
Yeah.
He opted out. Yeah.
Film looks great. I think.
Out. And then Sage Surratt, who's actually
he's great, the receiver.
Hometown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he opted out. He's friends with my brother, which is ironic. So actually, Chaz Surratt, who plays for UNC, the Surratt brothers, so Chaz, they both went to high school in our town. And
you got to get them on the podcast before the draft. I'll announce the pick. I'll announce you can
they played basketball and football.
Oh,
they
cool.
played basketball with my brother. And then obviously played football. So
Yeah.
Chaz is a good kid, good player. Sage is a great kid. I wish he would have played because he opted out of the Wake Forest
Yeah.
season. I wish he would have played, but you got to do what you got to do. But I have a lot of respect for the Wake Forest program and Dave Clawson and what they do there. I'm trying to think of like some of the programs that I've covered. Like I said, Boston College was one of my favorites this season because of the respect that I have for Jeff Hafley and the ability for him to come in and just totally. Not that things needed to be turned around there, but from a culture standpoint, he did some different things that I think was really refreshing for the players. And so in a first-year head coach, a job with them, I don't see a ton of products coming out from an NFL standpoint, but in the next 3 years or so, you can totally expect some guys to come out of some good products and play at the next level. And then, Wake Forest, I have a ton of respect for.
I know you're an NC State alum. Anybody? I know we got Kelvin Harmon a couple of years ago. He missed last year.
Kelvin Harmon is a great person. I'm really happy for him. Ryan Finley actually just got traded.
I saw that. Big news in the NFL.
I was expecting that. Yeah. It kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I know the Bengals have a Wake guy. They have a Wake. I know the safety Bates. Bates is a Wake guy. Jesse Bates.
Oh yeah, I think so too. And then they have a couple. Jermaine Pratt's a state guy. He's a linebacker.
Okay.
Who plays for
Interesting.
the Bengals. So let's see. I'm trying to think of this past season.
What was it covered? What was it like?
James Smith-Williams. No, he was the season before.
This past year, hasn't happened. So I
tell people that all the time. Like I try to go back and say last season when I'm talking about things with the Canes, and I'm like, wait, was that last season? Because the reality was really last season was 2019 because it didn't really finish.
No.
And so it's the same thing with football. It all runs together.
Yeah.
And it was just a crazy year altogether. But NC State's got young quarterbacks.
Okay.
So, they're still kind of developing in that area. Nobody that would have come out that you'd see in the draft. Emeka Emezi is a great wide receiver who I think came back. But he was one of those that we weren't sure what he was going to do. There's a lot of really good juniors that came out of this last season that were juniors. I don't know what all their decisions ended up being. I think most of them ended up coming back. I think COVID kind of stirred, helped make that decision, right? I mean, if I were in their position, I would want to come back. Yeah. You'd hate to end a college season on that note, and just I feel like I don't know. Can you really get the true a true season, enough to really show that you're ready for the NFL when everything's going on and games are postponed and schedules are changed? I don't know,
What was it like covering college football this past season? I didn't think it was going to happen.
Oh, me neither. I was surprised at the amount of games that I actually ended up getting on top of 2 postponements that I was even scheduled for. So I think I still ended up covering 6 or 7 games, which means I was originally scheduled for 8 or 9, which was huge. It's a miracle we made it through, but you could see the exhaustion at the end, the teams opting out of the bowl games. I don't blame them one bit. Why put your kids through that? And I'm sure these coaches sat down and talked with their kids too. What's the risk? What's the reward here? Are you guys ready to be done, or do you want to keep going? And so, you have to see what all those kids went through, and at the end, why they made the decisions that they did. So
was it a last minute thing each week when they'd say, hey, we need you, or did you have enough time to kind of get your
I was originally scheduled I would be scheduled, but it would be on a Thursday or a Friday before the game where I would get a call your game's canceled. So I would spend a full week prepping, and then it would be oh, just kidding, it's either canceled or postponed. There was one that was never made up because it was it was UNC versus Charlotte. So they didn't, if it was a non-ACC game, they weren't going to make it up. And then there was one that there was another one that got canceled. That was another situation like that, I think. And then one that just totally got postponed. So it was scheduled for November, and then we ended up playing it on December 5th. And so I just switched my flight and everything to that week. It was a lot of adjusting on the fly. That's for sure.
Were you doing just everything virtual with players, or how far were you spaced out?
Everything was normally in a game, when I prep for game week, I get a couple phone conversations set up with players. And so that's normal. Like that, I do that in a normal season where I hop on the phone with them. The coaches meetings are where we go to the facilities on the Fridays before the Saturday games, and we sit down in the coach's office. They give us tours of the facility. We get that one-on-one time with them, that in-person time. And the exploring the facilities is cool too, because they kind of tell you different stories as you see memorabilia hanging up and awards hanging up. So you learn a lot about a program by doing all those little things and being around campus that you can incorporate into the broadcast. That's what we didn't get to do this year. So we did all of our coaches meetings via Zoom, which were fine. But because you're at least still getting them face to face, but there's nothing like that true connection being in person, especially when you're telling their stories too. So it's only a matter of time till we get back to that in-person stuff. So hopefully next season will be the same.
Did you have to get like a rapid test before you every time you traveled, or?
It depended on the school and the campus.
Really?
So yeah, which is interesting. So like Boston College was one of the ones where I had to get a test the week like before I flew there. And then when I got there on campus, they tested me with their student athletes. So I had to get like a rapid test once I got there. Now, Syracuse, they like the state of New York required that you had a test or you could have an essential worker document. I had an essential worker document, so I didn't have to get a test for Syracuse. There was Wake Forest tested us, which was interesting too, because I just drove there since I'm from, so like I didn't even have to get on a plane, but they still tested me.
That's weird.
So yeah, it depended on the state and the school regulations, and they would just tell me each week what I had to do and what I didn't have to do.
Do you still have to get tested before every game you work for the Canes?
Nope.
No.
So yeah, so there's different protocols in place for that as well. So like basically you have like different passes, like when you go into the arena. So like we stay on the main concourse level, like that's where our set is. So we just come in the main entrance and go straight to our set. Whereas there's some employees like security and other people that are using the same hallways and entrances as the players are. So anybody that uses any sort of hallway or entrance that a player, staff, or referee uses has to get tested on a regular basis. So it's interesting. It just all depends on where in the building you're working.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's unbelievable. No, I've gotten tested 3 times. Once I thought I had it, I didn't have it. I felt horrible. One time was before Thanksgiving. I've never gotten it, so that's good. But I remember the first time I got it, like you remember when you were a kid and used to go to the dentist and they'd give you that laminated sheet and they say, what flavor toothpaste do you want?
Yeah.
So when they did that, I was at the drive-through testing thing, and they said, and I kind of said, what flavors do you have? And the lady goes, this one, and just shoves it up my nose. I'm like, I really like that. She goes, try this one. This one's better. And did the other nostril. I'm like, this is horrible.
Man, that's brutal.
Yeah. Now I'm glad. Got the first dose of vaccine. Hopefully getting it another couple weeks. No more stuff going up my nose anytime soon. But before I let you go, how can people find you on social media? And then who is your dark horse to win the Stanley Cup this year?
All right. So they can follow me at Abby Labar _ on Twitter, because somebody already had the Abby Labar.
Really? You got to get that. You got to get that from them.
Isn't that interesting? My Instagram's just at Abby Labar though, so nobody had that one. I didn't have to throw the _ there. So that's my Twitter and Instagram. Anybody can message me for anything that they want. My direct messages are always open. And my dark horse to win the Stanley Cup, that is one. I won't try to be biased and say the Hurricanes. We'll go dark. We'll say that the Hurricanes are the obvious choice to win the Cup. So we'll go dark horse angle would be
the Washington Capitals.
I can't pick the Capitals.
No, really? Damn, that was a dark horse.
I'm trying to think of somebody in the West right now. I mean, I would say the Colorado Avalanche. I don't know if they're necessarily a dark horse because they've been so good in the last couple of years. But I think because everyone expected them to make it last year and they didn't. That would be a team I would root for.
All right, that's what I'm betting on. That's what I'm betting on.
Root for the Avalanche.
Betting on. I'm gonna make the bet today. Colorado Avalanche, Stanley Cup champions. Book it. Right? All right, yeah. But do appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know you're really, really busy, but it's been awesome. So it really means a lot.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.